And then we come to the final voice. This is Rachel, also known as Player One. And I'm no longer with you, but I'm not in pain or anything, so please don't worry. I finally get to see what exists down that black cartoon hole Daffy Duck used to slap onto the ground. The birds are here with me now, and so are the plants, and so are all of God's fine animals. I'm sitting in a glade with all the creatures, the forest sitting around me. A dove is on my left palm, a gray squirrel on my right. I'm dozing, resting, feeling completely at ease. Stillness is what I have here. Wherever here is, I'm no longer part of the world, but I'm not part yet of what follows. I don't know how long I'll be here. This is a stopping point only, and yet you'd think I'd be bored here, but boredom only exists inside linear time, and eternity isn't linear, so there's no boredom, no current events either. Eternity is free of news because there's no timeline. It's everything and nothing, no calendars inside of eternity. And it's cooler here too, and it's quiet, and I don't look at things the same way anymore because, guess what? I now understand metaphors. That's a surprise. I now know that one thing can be anything else. A burning book indeed equals fascism. Gently cooing doves equal peace. And in my ears I hear a noise, and that noise is the sound of the color of the sun. And that's like 4 metaphors wrapped up into one. Anything can be anything. I don't think my child, if that's what it was when I was shot, my fertilized DNA clump, is here with me, but I'm not sad because that DNA clump is probably in a here of its own. I have mostly happy memories of being alive on Earth. I remember how shampoo foam circling the bathtub drain resembled galaxies, and I remember my father driving around the block 3 times. I could hear the whole version of Buddy Holly's Every Day on the radio. I remember being allowed to stay at home from school to reprogram the coffee maker to display European time instead of North American time. And I remember the bathroom steaming up, my mother's handwriting appearing as if by magic on the foggy mirror, the words, "I heart Rachel." I didn't know what it meant at the time. Why would someone mix a heart shape in with letters? But of course it meant she loves me. Hearts equal love. And I know this because of how my heart was beating with Rick, and that's a happy memory too. Oh, poor Rick. Oh, poor Luke, poor Karen, poor Max. Oh, poor everybody, really. I mean, humans have to endure everything in life in agonizingly endless clock time, every single second of it. Not only that, we have to remember enduring our entire lives. And then there's the cosmic punchline that our lives are in fact minuscule compared to geological time or the time frames of the galaxies and the stars. Dreams help fix the curse and gift of time perception. I wonder if humans are the only animal to know the difference between sleeping and dreaming. Dogs and cats probably don't differentiate too much between dreams and real life. And people probably didn't much either until the last few centuries. I wonder if my DNA clump is sleeping. Can eggs sleep? Can sperm sleep and dream? They're only half creatures, really. How can they be alive? And how can they dream? I think the division point between where life begins and ends is far murkier than we might think. The only sounds I can hear down here inside of Daffy Duck's hole, other than nature sounds, are prayers and curses. They're the only sounds with enough power to cross over to wherever it is I am. Do prayers create electrical fields? Is that how they cross the universe? Who's to say? I have no idea how cell phones connected me to call centers in Mumbai, but they still did it. Poor humanity, praying and cursing and praying and cursing. What's to become of us as a species? A part of me doesn't worry about us. If we can breed wolves into wiener dogs in 10 generations, what can we do with 1 billion years? Never mind what God might do with 1 billion years. Human existence has been so short. For every person currently alive, there are 19 people who have lived before us. And that's not very many, really. And maybe our time as a species on Earth was only ever meant to be short. And Luke is right. Human DNA truly is, in so many ways, a total disaster. What would God say about evolution? Why has no one ever asked that specific question that particular way? God's probably been having a great big chuckle since 1850 whatever, watching humans scramble and bunker and fight and scream over evolution. God made our DNA, thus God made us. What matters is that he got us here to this point. Or maybe the DNA did it all. Whether you're a believer or a non-believer, it's still a win-win scenario. I think cloning is where it's probably going to get really fun. Imagine being a lab worker in the year 2050, creating a great-great-great-great-grandchild during a coffee break. Or blackmailers holding your hairbrushes hostage, saying something like, "Give us your money or we'll make 10 of you and kill them all." Or I see captains of industry rewriting their wills, deeding everything down to themselves down the line in perpetuity. And imagine being born and getting an owner's manual written by previous versions of you. Like the manual that comes with the 2011 Volkswagen Jetta. Imagine all this time it would save us, all this wasted time, these hopeless dreams. And maybe this is how we get to evolve forward, electively mutating our way out of our present dire situation, because mutation on its own isn't going to make it happen. Human beings are going to have to do something to speed things up considerably. If we're going to survive on this piece of milky blue rock, we need technology. And thank heavens technology is the inevitable result of our freakish DNA. I'm quite certain that intelligent beings on other planets have had growth curves just like ours, and maybe they've mutated forwards too. But it's not like aliens are going to come here and do our work for us. Sometimes I think humans don't even exist as discrete persons. Rather, there's only the possibility or the probability of you being you at any given moment. While you're healthy, the probability remains high. When you're sick or old, it shrinks. Your chance of being all there becomes less and less. When you have Alzheimer's, like Luke's dad and Karen's mom, the probability of being you slips almost to zero. And then you die, and zero really is zero, but here I am talking, so who's to say? I'm not being very cheerful, am I? I have to watch it with that sort of thing. I may be in the hereafter, but my normalcy training seems to be sticking. I don't want to give offense to other people. I don't need the trouble. Because being different is hard, and being different in the new normal is going to be harder still. The new normal. You people on Earth are now inhabiting an era in which all human personality characteristics are linked to some form of a brain feature. Personality is a slot machine. The cherries, lemons, and bells are your SSRI system, your schizophrenic tendency, your left-right brain localization, your anxiety proclivity, your wiring glitches, your place on the autistic and OCD spectrum. And to these things we must add the deep-level influences of the machines and systems of intelligence that guided your brain into maturity. I could go on, but do remember that in the end, it's real people at the end of all these variables, not androids. And if you don't have the courage to face the truth about how we're made, then you don't deserve the wonder that comes out of being alive, regardless of how your particular slot machine generated you. Knowing your demons won't chase away your angels, and you won't be able to kill your demons, so you can't get melodramatic that way. Oh, listen to me. I'm just metaphoring like crazy and trying to define time while no longer living inside of it. Past, present, future now seem like party novelties, and keeping my verb tenses here has been difficult. But I do remember a bit of life before the 21st century, and I remember the sensation, especially after 9/11, that time had stopped feeling like time. Society collectively lost the sense that an era feels like an era. They forgot the way it felt when time and emotions and cultures were particular to one spot of time, the way I suppose decades felt in the 20th century. And lives stopped feeling like lives. Or at least people began talking about not having a life. What could that mean? Information overload triggered a crisis in the way people saw their lives. It sped up the way we locate, cross-reference, and focus the questions that define our existence, our roles, our stories. The crux seems to be that our lives stop feeling like stories. And if we're no longer to have lives that are stories, what do our lives become? Well, yet seeing one's life as a story seems like nostalgic residue from an era when energy was cheap and the notion of the super special, ultra important individual with blogs and Google hits and a killer resume was a conceit the planet was still able to materially support. In the new normal, we need to strip ourselves of notions of individual importance. Something new is arising that has neither interest nor pity for souls trapped in the 20th century. Nonlinear stories, multiple endings, no loading times is called life on Earth, and life not need to be a story, but it does need to be an adventure. In 1,000 years, electively mutated post-humans will look back at us with awe and wonder, and they'll say that this was when humans and the planet got married, fused together, the moment when one could no longer separate each from the other. I hope they'll think that we did it with some humor. And yes, I realized from my new perspective that it was ridiculous of me to spend $3,400 on a dress to find a mate in a seedy airport cocktail lounge. And yes, it was sweet and funny for Karen to end up on Max's social network page as a cougar. See, here's the deal. I just realized I'm going to be allowed to return to Earth. And I'm going to be allowed to return with my DNA clump, which will become a 6.3-pound baby girl next April. And I guess that's why they brought me here to the Glade, to sort things out. So I'm going to have a future tense, and so I'm going to have a story. And many things will soon happen. It will begin to rain, and the chemicals outside the lounge will crackle and fizz and drain away. Gas will be rationed and doled out by the government, and it will never go below $350 a barrel ever again. And the police will show up and everyone will leave, and Karen will live in a hostel with Luke while they wait 3 weeks for planes to fly again. A few months after that, they'll get married, and Luke's former flock won't press embezzlement charges and will instead pray for Luke, which makes me think they're a bit stupid. And Karen and Luke and young Casey, her daughter, will have their happy ending, Rick. Well, Rick is going to go to the hospital with Max and me, and Max will be blind, and I'll lose my ability to understand metaphors and humor. I'll miss them very much. I'm not sure if I'll still believe in God. That remains to be seen. But what I can see is that I'll marry Rick, and I'll breed white mice and pay our bills that way. And best of all, my father will think of me as a real human being, which is all that this trip ever really was about, so I get a happy ending too. However, I won't be allowed to remember everything I've learned here in this quiet place, which is sad. I have to leave soon. My thoughts, oh, poor humanity, poor everyone, my poor fellow citizens, children of the children of the children of the pioneers, who somehow became immune to God, citizens inhabiting a new world of robotized collective minds that exist everywhere and nowhere, meta-minds with inexplicable biases and wants and unslakable thirst, real-time, real fear. All the time, Bertus Fremont wasn't so wrong after all. And so we're all waiting for it now, aren't we? It. Good old it. The it who reigns. The it we mean when we ask, what time is it? I suppose it is the arrival of the sentience, the arrival of a meta-mind that is us and yet much more than us. It's the sentience that will eclipse us, that will encourage us, shame us, and indulge us. It is out there waiting. And I'm waiting too. That's why I'm here talking to you before I enter the new normal. And so before I enter this new world, curiously, the words that come to me are the words of Leslie Fremont. And I raise the hand that holds a sleeping dove and put forth a toast to you all. Here is a toast to everyone on earth who's ever been eager, no desperate, for even the smallest sign that there exists something finer and larger and more miraculous about our inner selves than we ever could have supposed. Here's to all of us reaching out our hands to other people everywhere, reaching out to pull them from the icebergs in which they stand frozen, to pull them through the burning hoops of fire that frighten them, and help them to climb over the brick walls that block their paths. Let us reach out to shock and captivate people into new ways of seeing and thinking. I have this funny feeling I wouldn't have missed life on Earth for anything. So I must be getting something out of the experience, and I hope you do too. I, Rachel, also known as Player One, can now see the nighttime light of your real world. So good night, and goodbye to you all.
From Convocation Hall in Toronto, you've been listening to The View from Inside Daffy Duck's Hole, the fifth